Nares. There's a letter sitting on my kitchen table right now. I haven't opened it yet. It arrived 3 days ago, and every morning I make my coffee, sit down, and look at it. My daughter-in-law's handwriting on the envelope. That loopy, too neat cursive she uses when she wants to seem polished. I know what's in it. I've known for weeks. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it actually started, at my husband's funeral. 14 months ago, when I realized that the family I thought I had raised was not the family sitting in that church. Walter died on a Tuesday in October. Pancreatic cancer, which is the kind that doesn't give you much time to say goodbye. We had 9 weeks from diagnosis to the end. 9 weeks to say 41 years worth of things. We did our best. The funeral was at St. Andrew's, the church where we got married. I had asked for simple, no extravagance, no catered reception, just the people who loved him gathered in the same room, my son, my daughter-in-law, my 2 grandchildren, Walter's sister Nora, who drove up from Savannah, a few of his old colleagues from the firm, some neighbors. I sat in the front pew and kept turning around, expecting to see our son's family settle in behind me. They arrived 11 minutes after the service started. My son slid in beside me without a word. My daughter-in-law sat at the end of the pew, scrolling through her phone with the screen dimmed, thinking I couldn't see. Their older son, 17, almost a man, slouched with his arms crossed, earbuds in one ear. Their younger one, my granddaughter Adeline, was the only one who held my hand. She is 12. She squeezed my fingers so hard during the reading that I had to remind myself to breathe. Afterward, at the graveside, my son shook hands with Walter's colleagues and laughed too loudly at something someone said. I don't know what. I was watching Adeline, who had picked a small yellow wildflower from the edge of the grass and laid it very carefully on the casket before they lowered it. Nobody else did that. I drove home alone. For the first few months, I told myself grief was making me see things wrong, that my son was coping in his own way, that my daughter-in-law had never been warm and that wasn't new, so why hold it against her now? That losing a father at 43 is hard and people close in on themselves. I gave them every excuse I could think of. The house felt enormous without Walter. It's a 4-bedroom colonial on just under an acre, the kind of house you buy when you think you're going to fill it with a big life. We did fill it. Birthday parties, holidays, a dog named Chester who passed 3 years before Walter did. 41 years of living. Now it was just me and the rooms. My son called me a month after the funeral, not to check on me. I want to be precise about that, because I noticed. He called to talk about the house. Mom, you have to be practical, he said. 4 bedrooms, a full basement, all that yard. What are you doing with it? I told him I was living in it. I just mean it's a lot for one person. There it was. One person. As though I had become a fraction of what I used to be. I told him I was fine, that I had friends nearby, that the neighbors looked in on me, that I was not ready to have that conversation. He said okay, he said he just worried. He didn't call again for 6 weeks. My daughter-in-law is the one who really runs things in that household. I understood that early in their marriage and made my peace with it. She grew up with money. Not the kind that's earned over decades, but the kind that's always just been there, assumed and unquestioned. She has opinions about what things should look like, what neighborhoods people should live in, where grandchildren should go to school. Her name is Vanessa. I want you to know her name because she matters to this story. In February, 4 months after the funeral, she called me herself. That was unusual. We were always polite, always appropriate, but she didn't call me just to talk. I've been thinking about you rattling around in that house, she said. Truly, it makes me anxious. Have you looked into anything smaller? A condo, maybe? Something with a community? I said I hadn't, because the market is remarkable right now. You could make a significant amount, and then you wouldn't have to worry. I asked her what I was worrying about. A pause. Maintenance. Upkeep. Being alone. I'm not alone, I said. I have friends. I have church. I have Adeline, who calls me every Sunday. She laughed. The way people laugh when they're done listening. Of course. I just think you should consider it. I said I would think about it. I didn't think about it. Spring came. I planted the garden the way I always had, tomatoes along the back fence, marigolds along the front walk, 2 rose bushes Walter had given me for our 30th anniversary. I weeded on my hands and knees. I felt fine. Better than fine, some mornings. My son started coming around more. I should have recognized that as a sign. But at first I was just glad to see him. He'd stop by on Saturday afternoons, walk through the house with his hands in his pockets, make comments about the water heater, the age of the roof, the crack in the driveway that had been there for 15 years and never bothered anyone. This is a lot to keep up with, Mom. I manage. But for how long? I poured him coffee and changed the subject. In May, Vanessa came with him. They sat across from me at the kitchen table. The same table where I'm sitting now, looking at that unopened envelope. And Vanessa had a folder, printed pages inside. I could see the letterhead before she slid it toward me. A real estate agency. Comparable sales in the neighborhood. A suggested listing price that made my chest tighten, not because the number was bad, but because of what it meant. We've done some research, she said. If you sold now, you'd have enough to be very comfortable. There are beautiful communities, actual communities, activities, people your age. I have people my age, I said. My book club, my neighbor Ruth, my friend Helen from church. My son leaned forward. Mom, we worry about you falling, about something happening and no one knowing. I have a phone. It's not the same. I closed the folder and pushed it back across the table. I appreciate that you care, but I am not selling this house. The ride home from Vanessa that night. They had driven separately. She left first. My son lingered at the door. She's right, you know, he said quietly. I know she thinks so. He left without hugging me. I want to tell you about Adeline. She started calling me every Sunday when she was 9, entirely on her own. Not because her parents told her to. I know because she once let it slip that they didn't know she called as often as she did. She would call from her bedroom with the door closed, and we would talk for sometimes an hour about school, about books she was reading, about a friend who had been unkind, about whether she thought heaven was real. She asked me once, when she was 10, what it felt like to be in love with someone for a long time. I told her it felt like knowing someone's handwriting without looking at the signature. Like knowing which creak on the stairs is them, and which is the house settling. Like not having to explain the ending of a story because they already know how it ends. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I want that. I said, you'll have it. She visited me 3 times the summer after Walter died, taking the bus across town by herself, which Vanessa did not know about and which I considered one of our small private dignities. She helped me sort Walter's study. She sat with me while I cried, really cried, the ugly kind, and she didn't say anything, just handed me a dish towel because we'd run out of tissues. When she left that last time in August, she hugged me longer than she needed to. I love you, Grandma, she said into my shoulder. I love you too, sweetheart, more than you know. The pressure didn't stop. By summer, it had become a pattern. My son would call, bring up the house. I would redirect. 2 weeks later, Vanessa would text me articles. 55+ communities near you. How to downsize without regret. I stopped reading them, but didn't say so. In August, my son told me he had spoken with a financial planner, on my behalf, without asking me. He said you could have the proceeds invested and live very comfortably off the interest, he said. I asked when exactly this planner had reviewed my finances. A pause. I gave him some general numbers. My numbers. Those are my numbers, I said. My house, my finances, my decisions. I'm 68 years old. I am not incompetent. He said he never said I was incompetent. I said it was starting to feel that way. That was our worst conversation. He hung up shortly after, and I sat in the garden for a long time, watching the tomatoes. Then I did something I hadn't planned to do. I called a lawyer, not because I thought anything was illegal, not because I was angry exactly, but because I am a practical woman and practical women make arrangements when they need to be made. The lawyer's name is Patricia. Wait, someone else. Her name is Sandra. She came recommended by my friend Helen, who had used her for her own estate planning the year before. Sandra is 62, direct, and not the kind of person who wastes your time. I sat in her office for 2 hours. When I left, I had a new will. I didn't tell anyone, not my son, not Vanessa, not even Helen. I went home, put the copies in the fireproof box in my bedroom closet, and made dinner. September came. My son had taken a new approach. Instead of pressure, he'd gone quiet. The calls became less frequent. When I called him, conversations were brief. I told myself this was fine. People drift. But I noticed, Adeline still called every Sunday. One Sunday in October, a year, almost exactly after Walter's funeral, she called and her voice was different. Smaller. "Grandma," she said, "can I tell you something without you getting upset?" I said, "Of course." "Mom and Dad were talking last night. I wasn't supposed to hear. But Mom said she thinks if they just wait long enough, you'll have to sell because the upkeep will be too much. And then she said they should ask for part of the proceeds because of everything they've put into the situation." I was quiet for a moment. "What have they put in?" I asked carefully. Adeline was quiet too. "I don't know. I don't think anything. I think she just meant time. Worrying. I see. Are you upset?" I told her no. And I wasn't. Not the way she meant. I was something else. Clear-eyed, maybe. The kind of calm that comes when something you suspected becomes something you know. "You did the right thing telling me," I said. "Don't worry about it. That's my job." Here is what I had done in Sandra's office that September afternoon. I had left this house to Adeline, not to my son, not a portion, not a share. To Adeline outright, held in trust until she turns 25, with provisions for her education and care before that. I had left my savings, 43 years of careful living, a retirement account, some investments Walter had set up, enough to matter, to a scholarship fund at the local community college. Walter had gone there before he transferred. It seemed right. To my son, I left what the law requires you to leave when you want to make it unambiguous. $1. Not nothing. Nothing can be contested. $1 named specifically so that no one could claim oversight. Sandra had walked me through it calmly. "You're certain?" she asked. "I've been certain for a while," I said. "I just didn't know it yet. I didn't plan on telling anyone. I thought I would simply live my life, tend my garden, call Adeline on Sundays, and let the will speak for itself when it needed to." But something happened in November that changed the timeline. My son called, unexpectedly, on a Wednesday. He was friendly in the way people are when they want something, warm, a little too interested in how I was feeling, asking about the garden, about my knee that had been bothering me. Then, "Mom, Vanessa and I have been talking. We'd like to sit down with you. A real conversation, with a financial advisor present, just to make sure you're protected." "Protected from what?" I asked. "From making decisions in grief that you might regret. Selling too late, not planning properly, leaving things complicated for the people who care about you." I set down my coffee cup. "I've already done my planning," I said. Silence. "What does that mean?" "It means I've updated my will. I've spoken with an attorney. Everything is in order." Another silence. Longer. "When did you do that?" "In September. Why didn't you tell us?" I thought about how to answer that. I thought about the folder of real estate listings. I thought about the final planner consulted without my knowledge. I thought about Vanessa waiting for the upkeep to overwhelm me. I thought about Adeline on the bus across town, quiet at my kitchen table while I cried, a dish towel in her hand. "Because it wasn't yours to know," I said. "It's my life and my arrangements, and I've made them." He asked if he was still in the will. I told him the truth. The call ended shortly after. I won't tell you what was said in the last few minutes because it was not the kind of thing a son should say to his mother, and I don't want to give it more space than it deserves. That was 6 weeks ago. 3 days ago, the letter arrived. Vanessa's handwriting on the envelope. I haven't opened it. I've thought about it. I've held it up to the light, which told me nothing. I've set it down and walked away and come back. I think I already know what it says. An appeal, maybe. An argument. Possibly an accusation. People who believe they are owed something become very creative when they discover they're not getting it. I'm going to open it today, after I finish writing this. But first, I want to say something. Because I've lived 68 years and I've learned a few things, and one of them is that silence costs more than people realize. I stayed quiet for over a year. I let the comments about the house go. I let the folder of listings sit on my table. I let the phone calls and the pressure wash over me and told myself it was just worry, just love showing up in an awkward shape. I gave the benefit of the doubt long past the point where doubt had any benefit left. I don't regret any of it exactly. But I wish I had been clearer sooner. I wish I had said, plainly and without softness, this house is mine. My grief is mine. My decisions are mine. You do not get a vote. Because here's what I know now, sitting at this table with that letter in front of me. People who love you don't need to own you to prove it. Adeline called last Sunday, as she always does. I told her I was doing well. She told me about a book she was reading, some novel about a woman who travels alone across Scotland, and she said she thought it sounded like something I might like. I told her to keep it when she finished. She could bring it to me. I'll bring it at Christmas, she said. Can I stay a few days? I said she could stay as long as she wanted. Grandma, she said, just before we hung up, your house is so cozy. I love it there. I looked around the kitchen. The light in the afternoon comes in low through the window over the sink and turns everything the color of good things. The tomato plants are cut back for winter. The roses are mulched. The crack in the driveway is still there, and I still don't mind it. I love it too, I said. I meant this house, but I also meant the whole thing, the whole imperfect, rearranged, clearly seen life of it. I'm going to open that letter now. Whatever it says, I already know how this ends. I've been thinking about cause and effect a lot lately. Not in any grand philosophical way. Just in the quiet, practical way you think about things when you're 68 and you've watched enough of life to see how the threads connect. Vanessa didn't become who she is overnight. My son didn't either. I was part of that, and I want to be honest about it. Every time I absorbed a comment about the house without pushing back, every time I changed the subject instead of saying what I meant, every time I told myself it was love in an awkward shape when it was really just appetite wearing love's clothing, I taught them that I could be managed, that patience in me meant permission for them. That's the thing nobody tells you about being generous with people who aren't ready for it. It doesn't soften them. It confirms their assumptions. Adeline is different, and I've thought about why. She grew up in the same house, with the same parents, and she came out the other side with her heart intact. I think it's because she was never performing care. She just had it. She called every Sunday because she wanted to, not because it served anything. She sat with me while I cried and handed me a dish towel and didn't try to fix it or steer it anywhere useful. That kind of person doesn't appear from nothing. She chose, again and again, to pay attention to someone other than herself. That's not luck. That's character being built one small decision at a time. What I did, calling Sandra, rewriting the will, deciding quietly and completely, wasn't revenge. I want to be clear about that. Revenge is about making someone feel something. This was just about being honest, finally, about what the situation actually was. You don't leave someone $1 because you hate them. You leave it because you are done pretending the relationship is something it isn't, and you want the record to be accurate. The hardest part wasn't the legal piece. It was the moment I admitted to myself that I had been waiting, actually waiting, for my son to become the person I believed he could be. And that belief, held too long, had cost me a year of my own life, a year of second-guessing my decisions, apologizing for my house, shrinking myself to fit into someone else's plan for me. 68 is not old, but it is too old to keep giving years away. What I want anyone to take from this, if there's anything worth taking, is that clarity is not cruelty. Knowing what you will and won't accept, and holding that line without drama, without a long speech, without waiting for the other person to understand, is one of the most decent things you can do. For yourself, yes, but also for them. Because false hope is its own kind of unkindness. Walter used to say that the people who matter show up. Not when it's convenient, not when there's something to gain. They just show up. He was right about most things. Adeline shows up. Every Sunday, without fail. That letter from Vanessa is still on the table, opened now. It said what I expected it to say. I folded it back up, put it in the drawer, and went out to check on the roses. They're doing fine.